Tech Studios in Atlanta, Georgia. It's America's favorite game show podcast. Tell them what they've won. And now, here are your hosts, Tom Bastak and Mike Jacobs.
And hello, everyone, and welcome in. It is America's favorite game show podcast. Tell them what they've won. I'm one of the game show guys, Tom Bastak.
And I'm the other game show guy, Mike Jacobs. Tom, I'm going to be fully honest with you. This was the first episode I was not terribly excited about doing.
You know what, Mike? I couldn't agree more. You know, at first I thought, oh, one of us is really going to like this show, and the other one's really going to hate the show, and we're going to have a huge dichotomy here, and we both are just not fans of the show.
Not a fan.
But it's okay, because, you know, the truth is that just because we're not a fan doesn't mean that other people aren't fans of the show. I mean, obviously, there are.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing at the end of the day. This is just our opinions, and if you like the show, I mean, that's awesome. We're not dogging on anybody here, but
no.
For what I'm looking for in a show, this is not hitting any of my sweet spots.
You know, and I am the show guy. I'm not the game guy necessarily. You're more the game guy than I am.
Sure.
But this to me just doesn't have a mass appeal. But it's okay. We'll talk more about that when we get to ratings. I want to say thanks to everybody who listened in last week. I was expecting more guesses on the Audible rebus we threw in at the very end of the episode, and we didn't get very many guesses.
Oh, man, I actually totally forgot about we even did that. It took me so long to come up with how to do it, and then forgot it even happened.
Do like the rebuses, though. It's great.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
All right, so this is the if anybody's wondering why it may sound a little echoey in my portion of the world here, it's because I'm actually broadcasting today. It is broadcasting today. I'm recording today from a closet because we're in the process of a move and I lost my office.
No.
So so this will be the last episode that was recorded solely in Atlanta. Soon we'll be a tri-state. Because if we count Christian coming from Pennsylvania, I'll be coming from North Carolina, and you'll be coming from Georgia.
Yes, indeed. Tri-state podcasting. Love it.
Oh, I love it. And those are the only 3 states that are going to listen.
That's not true. As we saw on the Spotify Wrapped, on Spotify alone, we are a quad country podcast.
Yeah, just 4 countries and from Spotify. But, I mean, it's a lot more than that if we dive deep into our analyzing.
Sure. Yeah. No, I'm speaking simply of
some
Spotify,
countries
so.
I've never heard of.
Right?
Craziness. Absolute craziness.
Who knew hosting a game show podcast would also result in geography lessons?
You know, we learn something every week, though, don't we?
That is very true. We do.
All right. Well, let's learn about the news. It's time. Are you ready?
Let's go into the news.
Light up your cigarette, crack open a beer, put the kiddos to bed. From chaos around the world to carnage in your very own front yard, it's time for the news.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Mike. This is the news brought to you by BuzzardBlog.com. I'm Christian Carrion. So the biggest story this week, and this is one I'm going to speak off the top of my head about because I'm so excited. The rumors came true. We have a 24-hour Bob Barker Price is Right channel on Pluto
what?
TV. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And they started with the early 80s episodes, which in my opinion, Bob Barker was at his peak in like the early 80s or so. Just something about the show, it was such a well-oiled machine, and he was so smooth and so fast. You know, one of the strengths of Bob Barker as a host was his ability to time the show in his head. They say a host has to be a producer on stage, and that's one of the things he did incredibly well. He just knew when to have a lot of fun with a contestant and when to speed it up so that they would end right on time every episode. He was so good at that, and as a result, you just get this unbelievable smoothness. I mean, Bob Barker has not been on TV in 13 years, which is incredible to think about. But you know, he's back on the screen, and it's like he never left. And you know, Drew Carey is doing a great job right now, making the show his own. But there's just no denying how good Bob Barker is. So yeah, 24 hours a day. What they're doing, and I don't know that they've officially announced this yet, but what I've noticed they're doing is they show 8 episodes a day, and they repeat that block 3 times a day. So any day you can watch 8 straight hours of classic CBS Bob Barker Price is Right, and it is glorious. It's beautiful.
Christian, confirm or deny, they are not allowed to air episodes where a fur coat is given out per Bob Barker's orders?
That is true. Yeah, part of
Wow.
his various contracts with, and it used to be a contract with Game Show Network, but they let that lapse back in the early 2000s. And the head of CBS at the time, when Drew Carey first took over, sort of vowed that no Bob Barker episodes would be rerun while the current version is in production. But yeah, there is a stretch of episodes that aren't allowed to be re-aired because they gave away fur coats on the show. Bob Barker, huge animal activist, definitely became more so later in his life after the passing of his wife. And it's interesting that those episodes contain some pricing games that will just never be seen. The lifespan of those games fell right in that stretch of time that they're not allowed to re-air. So there are some
interesting.
games like the shower game that we'll never see. I don't know.
Wait, the shower game, what's that all about?
The shower game, okay. The shower game was the biggest game they had ever built for the show. So imagine this. There are 6 shower stalls with double doors on each one. Each one has the possible price of a car on it. You guess which one is the right price. You go in, you pull the handle on the shower, and you get a big car key. If you pull the handle and you get confetti, you get to try again. You get to go into another shower. But then there's a couple that just have $100 bill in them. And it was an incredible game. Again, massive set. And I seem to remember that they stopped playing it because there were some concerns about racial or ethnic sensitivity. Telling the wrong person to go take a shower just kind of played wrong. So they stopped playing the game. But unbelievably beautiful game.
Well, and I'll say, racial sensitivity aside, it sounds like just a bizarre game. And like, if I were in charge of like, hey, we need to thin out the show a little bit, I'd be like, how about that shower one?
Right. Yeah, it's unbelievable. And and of course it doesn't fit in with any of the games that are played now, so I don't know how long it would
Right, that's what I'm
last
saying.
anyway,
It feels just like such a out of left field thing. It's weird.
Well, the late 70s, especially for The Price is Right, I'll talk about The Price is Right in particular. The late 70s was a huge sort of growth period. You had a guy named Jay Wolpert, who was one of the producers of the show. He came up with the idea of presenting the showcases at the end of the show as like a skit. So there would be a script and a sort of narrative as they're revealing all these prizes. He was the first one to come up with that idea to make the showcase itself like a sort of a piece of entertainment.
A big to do, if you will.
Exactly. And he left the show, created a couple of other shows. Hitman was one of them, which we talked about last week or the week before. Became most famous for writing the screenplay for the film The Count of Monte Cristo. So he did pretty well for himself after The Price is Right.
All right, well, what about this week in game show history?
Well, this week in game show history, we are going back to December 7th, 1942, the one-year anniversary of Pearl Harbor, and also the birth of one of my favorite hosts, somebody I grew up with and idolized when I was younger. Probably the first game show host I ever really thought of that way. He was just a hero of mine. Peter Tamarkin. So Peter Tamarkin was known as most famously as the host of Press Your Luck on CBS in the mid '80s. Hosted a couple other shows. We talked about Hitman a couple weeks ago. He hosted a show called Wipeout, a trivia show, which has no relation to the stunt show of today. Just a really fun sort of general knowledge quiz show. What I really liked about Wipeout was that you didn't have to have a huge bank of knowledge in order to do well. The main conceit of the game was they would give you 16 answers on a board. 12 of them would be right, 4 of them would be wrong. They would be wipeouts, and you just have to pick the right answers from the wrong ones. Really fun to play. Lasted a good 15 years or so in England as a show on the BBC. But yeah, Peter Tamarkin. Unbelievable. Started as an editor for Women's Wear Daily and was an anchor on I think it was Playboy After Dark, their news segment, and then made the switch to game shows. His first national exposure was Hitman on NBC, followed by Press Your Luck for 3 years until '86. Hosted Wipeout for a year. Hosted a sort of Price is Right ripoff called Bargain Hunters for a little while.
Let me tell you, Christian, thank you for that. Now, you bring us always these amazing tidbits from history that we love so much. But this week, Mike, are we ready?
We are ready.
All right, we're going to stump the chump.
Well, our track record's not so good, so I'm not optimistic, but we'll see what happens.
Speak for yourself.
Can we take it back? Let's just take it back. Hang on. Mike, are you ready?
I am ready.
We're going to stump the chump.
All right, we'll see what happens.
Oh, God. Okay, no. Stop.
That's the
Listen,
best
I know-
catchphrase for this segment I've ever heard. We'll see what happens.
Listen, Christian, even though he's beating us down week after week, we still have to have some sort of je ne sais quoi to make sure that he can't do it this week. So here we go one more time. Mike, are you ready?
I am ready.
We are going to stump the chump.
Let's do it, Christian. This is it. We've got
Here
it.
we go.
We've got it.
I hope
Here's-
I can get this one.
Here's what we want. It's not so much as a question as it is a demand for you.
Okay.
And I need
Demand. I like it.
I need the name of 5. Count them 5 television shows that were hosted. I'm sorry, not hosted. Filmed in the Bob Barker studio, but I will not let you use The Price is Right as one of your 5.
Okay.
I like it. I
Well.
like it. Okay.
Boy,
Okay.
I hope I can do this.
Oh, stop now.
Okay. All right.
Well, see, the
He's
thing
playing
is, there
with
were
us
so
now.
many. There were so many more than 5 game shows taped in the Bob Barker studio. So
Wait,
originally,
wait. Do you have like 10 that you can name?
let me see. Can I? Do,
Hang on, let's
Can
hear
I
it.
name this tune in 10 notes? You know what? I bet I
right,
could
go
at
ahead.
least give it a try.
You think you can get 10 shows that were filmed there?
10 shows altogether. Are we including non-game shows, or is this just game shows?
Well, as it's written, submitted to us, it just says television shows. It does not specify game shows. So, yeah, I'll accept anything that was filmed in Bob Barker studio. Let's
All
do
right,
it.
here we go.
Okay, and we're not including The Price is Right, so that's off the list. So we're
Correct.
starting at
It's
0.
done. It's
Okay.
done.
So the version of Card Sharks in the late '80s with Bob Eubanks as host, that was in Studio 33. That was also
One.
the Bob Barker studio. So I'll use those interchangeably.
Sure.
33 is the Bob Barker studio.
Yes.
So we got Card Sharks at around the same time that we're filming Card Sharks. They were also doing Family Feud with Ray Combs. That was in 33. And later in the 80s, maybe even into the early 90s, Studio 33 was home to Wheel of Fortune. And Pat Sajak was hosting that, and then Bob Goen from Entertainment Tonight was hosting it for a while in that studio.
3.
$100,000 pyramid with Dick Clark. They actually built a sort of runway in the middle of kind of where Contestants Row is. They extended that out to fit one of the cameras that they used for that show. So $100,000 pyramid.
4.
Now You See It, the word search game from the 70s with Jack Nars as host. He was doing that around the same time he was doing Concentration in the mid-70s. That was in Studio 33.
5.
Double Dare with Alex Trebek in 76. That was in 33. That was in, Studio 33.
6.
If we're going to talk about non-game shows, the Carol Burnett show was famously filmed in Studio 33. I think she was more famous for being in that studio even before The Price is Right was around.
7. What do you got for 7?
So for number 7, actually, Real Time with Bill Maher is in Studio 33 right now, and they share that space with The Price is Right currently.
Wow. Okay, great. So God, that's got to be a big sound stage. You're doing Price is Right with 3 huge parts of that stage and Bill Maher in there. Okay, go ahead.
All right, and then let's see. I don't know if this counts. You let me know if it counts or not. But one of the original pilot episodes for the current version of Let's Make a Deal was filmed on the same set as The Price is Right in Studio 33 because they had the 3 big doors, and I think that it just sort of lent itself really well to that.
Mike, what do you think?
Well, so I will again go by the exact wording of the question, which is just TV shows. Doesn't say they had to air. Didn't say it couldn't be pilots. That all sounds fair to me.
So that's 8. Congratulations, Christians. You're 8 in. You've got 2 to go.
All right, and let's see, where are we at here? I'm pretty sure Press Your Luck taped a few episodes in 33. They were, I believe, in Studio 31, which is in the same building, but I think that for a while they did some in 33 as well.
All right, and then last but not least, if you get 10 in a row, what do you got?
Well, last but not least, and they did this in Studio 33 for close to a decade, but Match Game in the 70s, that was absolutely filmed in 33. I think for a couple of episodes they were in a different studio, but for the majority of the 9 years it was on CBS, that was a Studio 33 production in CBS Television City in Hollywood, and that's 10.
Wow.
Oh, Michael, we suck.
I mean, not only did we not, we double didn't stump the chump.
I answered double. Does that mean I'm off next week?
No, that doesn't mean you're off. All it means is that next week we're going to make it even tougher. Ladies and gentlemen, when you get a chance, drop us a line via social media or email and give us your question that we could stump the chump with. We've had, Christian, I've got to let you know, we've already had the ask of us if we would do a whole Stump the Chump episode.
I might have to have an extra bowl of Wheaties, but I'd be down for it.
Excellent. I totally and completely love that. All right. So that being said, this week we're doing Deal or No Deal. Your thoughts and your stories. What do we got? What do you have for us on Deal or No Deal, Christian?
Sure. Well, Deal or No Deal, one of my favorite game shows of all time. Now, first of all,
all right, stop, everybody. We're gonna take it back. Really, one of your favorite game shows of all time?
Deal or No Deal took the idea of the money or the box, this kind of conceit that you've seen in so many shows like Let's Make a Deal, Treasure Hunt, and they really just expanded it to this immense scale. Originally, the host of the American version, Howie Mandel, didn't want to host the show, didn't think it would be successful, but the producers of the show, who had him first in line, on their list to be the host of the American version, made a version of the game on a big piece of cardboard, printed everything out at Kinko's, glued it together, brought it to his house, and had him play the game on this giant piece of cardboard. And from that demonstration, they got him hook, line, and sinker, and he hosted the show. Complete revitalization of Howie Mandel's career. He was a stand-up in the 80s, had shows like Bobby's World, the cartoon show in the 90s.
Right.
Just reached a whole new level of popularity with Deal or No Deal. They did a syndicated version that was on during the day. Originally, Arsenio Hall was scheduled to host that, but I think they must have... Right, dog pound and all. And I think they must have reached some sort of contract thing with Howie where he hosted both, but it would have been interesting to see how Arsenio would have handled a game show.
He'd be a good game show host, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. He's very personable. I think he would have done a great job with the contestants.
I agree.
Especially a show like that where, all the contestants seem to have some sort of backstory, something something to relate them to the home viewer. So I think he would have done well with that.
True.
So I grew up in Connecticut for most of my life. I've lived in Pennsylvania now for about 5 or 6 years, but Connecticut is where I spent most of my time. And I liked Deal or No Deal when it first started. I'm not the biggest fan of it these days, only because I think that the game show itself has been done in a much more cohesive and fun way than they do it. There's nothing against the show itself. I'm glad it's around, but I really liked it when it first started. I was fascinated by it. And they taped the syndicated version. I believe they did that in Hollywood for a while, where they did, or Burbank rather, at NBC, where they did the network version. So imagine my surprise when, to save on the tax credits offered to film and television productions, they moved Deal or No Deal to Waterford, Connecticut, in the middle of the woods. There was a
Oh,
big,
dude,
giant
Waterford,
TV.
Connecticut. There's nothing in Waterford,
There's
Connecticut.
nothing, but for a little while there was Deal or No Deal. The actual show was taped in Waterford, Connecticut, and I got to see it. I got to be in the audience for a couple of episodes. It was
Really?
unbelievably exciting. Yeah, so the way they did the daytime version, instead of models holding the cases, every case was held by a potential contestant. So at the beginning of the game, they spun a wheel with all the numbers 1 to 26 on it. Whatever number the ball landed on in that wheel, that person with that number would come down. That was their case. So having the other contestants open the cases for the player, there was this almost sense of family among the contestants, and it was really cool to see. It was a different dynamic than it was between like a contestant and 26 supermodels.
Right.
The original UK version does it that way, where if you're a contestant on the show, you're on stage holding your box until you get picked at random to play the game. If you don't get picked, you stay on the set until you're picked. There were some contestants that had been on there for weeks or months and hadn't gotten picked yet, and as a result, you get this thing where like, once they get picked, like, you're going to miss them. They've been on the show for weeks and weeks and weeks. That, to me, was an interesting dynamic. But to see that in person was incredible. And then the banker plays it to the hilt. I remember once the taping ended, the banker had to leave the studio, and they kind of cued him for, like, a round of applause. Said, "Here's our banker, everyone." He came down. He threw his trench coat over his head and ran out of the building. Nobody ever knew who the banker was. It was just so cool how anonymously he played that role.
Though
Yeah,
the
that
funny
was
thing
just
is
so much fun.
had he not done that, no one would have known who he was anyways, I'm sure. He's just some
That's very
dude,
true.
right? Like,
That's very Well, the banker doesn't actually calculate the offers on the show. In quotes, he's the guy who makes the number. But if you read the credits at the end, it does say the producers are in charge of all the bank offers.
for sure.
The banker's just there for
Dramatic effect.
for show.
dramatic
Exactly.
effect.
Exactly. Yeah. Also, I got to tell Howie Mandel his shoe was untied. That was fun.
You did that?
Yeah, well, okay. On commercial breaks, usually when you go see a game show, the host would sometimes take questions from the audience or, just kind of talk to everybody in the room while they're, doing whatever they do during the commercial breaks. Howie Mandel would just go to the corner of the studio and just stand as far away from everyone as possible. Didn't say a word to anyone.
I am not surprised by that. This is the guy that doesn't want to shake hands. He like literally started the fist bump before the fist bump.
I've heard a lot of things about him being like really, well, I know he's a germaphobe for one, but I think he's also like not a big fan of being a star. I know, I know. From what I understand, he used to be known for blowing up a glove on his head, like a surgical glove. I don't know if you've ever seen this.
Right, yeah, in his act.
Right,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think it became like his trademark thing, and so people would ask him to do it all the time, and he just got so sick of being like, "Oh, hey, you're that guy, do this thing," so that he like stays away from stardom, like it's a job for him, not a way to get famous. Is my
Makes sense to me.
understanding.
Wouldn't you be sick of that?
Yeah,
No,
absolutely.
No, I don't. I disagree entirely. The way I feel about it is like, look, if that's what made you famous, sorry, dude, that's what you're gonna do to make you famous. And what I equate it to is that there was a number of bands that were popular in the 1980s that I was on a 1980s radio station for in like the late 2000s, and we brought all these 80s acts in, and I don't know who it was. I don't remember the time. I don't know if it was Eddie Money or whoever it was. Came in and played, and they were really like a 1 or 2 hit wonder, and they played a couple of their songs. They played their biggest song, and it was great, and everybody melted, and it was amazing. And then the guy got up on stage and said, "That was so good. Let's do it again." And they played the same song again.
Oh man, I saw. Who did that song in the 80s? The what? What is like? It can only be better, or something like that.
I know who you're talking about. I just don't know who it is.
He opened up for Bare Naked Ladies a couple of years ago. Played that song 3 times in a row.
it just comes down to, like, if that's what you're known for, like, that's what you play.
But at the same time, like, I could see it getting to a point where it's like, yes, that's what I'm known for, but I don't want to be known for that. Like, that's just a thing we did.
Dude,
like, it's the
let
same
me tell
thing
you
with.
what, I saw Hall & Oates, and they played all of their songs, and then every time they would play, like, a new song off their new album, we didn't want to hear that. All we wanted to hear was Private Eyes, because that's why we paid the money to come to the show.
I guess. But by the same point, like, why would you go see a show to see a band play one song? What is the obsession with wanting to hear that one thing over and over again? Like, I especially when it comes to music, I think it's twofold that way.
I worked for the Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas, and one of the first groups we had come through there was Foster the People, and the only song they have is the
Pumped
one
Up
about
Kicks.
the and I'm like, and literally I watched 2,000 people fold into the casino to watch this group, and I'm like, dudes, they have one song. It's awful. It's terrible. It's one song. And actually, it's not a bad song.
I was
like
gonna say, I
the song.
kind of like that song, but
I
your point
do.
is,
I'm not saying it's awful, but I'm like, it's awful that you're coming in here and you're paying $40 a ticket and you're filling the room for one song.
Yeah.
Because everything else they played, nobody got it.
I think that perception of fame really also comes down to the type of person you are. Or the type of person that celebrity is. And I think, in the case of somebody like Howie Mandel, he's sort of gone on record as saying that he's experienced levels of greed that he didn't think were possible as host of that show. You know, he had people turn down $2, $3, $4, $500,000 at a theoretical amount of money that may or may not be there. And, he mentions it in a sort of joking way in a lot of interviews, but you have to wonder what kind of outlook is shaped from seeing interactions like that over and over and over again. It's sort of like,
that's a really
in a way,
good point.
seeing the worst in people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Christian, thank you for bringing us back to normality. I know that Mike
Lenny,
and I
hey, listen. Anytime you need a downer, you let me know.
No, I feel like Mike and I may have gone off on a tangent there. So thank you for bringing us back.
If you ever need a tangent on 80s one-hit wonders, I can go for hours.
Beautiful. I love it.
All right, how about a plug for Buzzer Blog?
Of course, buzzerblog.com, the number one game show and this is really true, the number one game show website in the world. Whether you're an industry insider, whether you're a casual fan, whether you're a diehard fanatic of game shows, whether you're looking for information on old shows, new shows, casting, contesting casting, host casting, anything relating to the world of unscripted television entertainment, buzzerblog.com is the place to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, my brother. We'll see you again next week.
I'll see you guys. Thanks so much.
All right, once again, and I can't reiterate it enough, if you'd like to write in or you'd like to give us a question for Stump the Chump, we'd love to have it. Even if we have to add on to it, make it bigger, better, badder, whatever.
Right.
If you've got an idea for a question even, send it in, and we can ask Christian and try to stump him.
Well, and the thing that was funny is that as listener submitted questions came in, I started to get worried because I was like, crap, like these people are going to come up with some really good questions, and like we're going to start this segment off with stumping Christian, and then it's not going to, like, he's not going to build a reputation, and clearly that has not happened. So I'm upping the call. Please give us difficult questions. We want to see him get something wrong for once.
You're right. I was very, very concerned that he was going to get like stumped in the first couple of weeks, and we're going to be like, oh, God, great. There goes our resident historian doesn't know squat.
Right? Exactly. He really is a chump.
No, but he's not, though, and that's the
Absolutely
whole
not. It's
I was
great.
a chump for thinking that is what
Yeah.
it is.
Well, isn't that the nature of the game?
Well, it is. And speaking of game, or lack thereof, it is almost time for us to go into gameplay. We'll take a quick break, and we come back, we'll talk about the gameplay of our featured show, Deal or No Deal.
Oh, do we have to?
Yes, Mike. Unfortunately, we have to.
All right.
You've been listening to America's favorite game show podcast. Tell them what they've won. That is the theme from Deal or No Deal, our featured show this week. What are we episode, Mike? Is this 27?
27, yeah, sure is.
Hey, coming up on 30. It'll be really interesting to see. I think we'll have, 3 more episodes before the end of the year, so we probably will finish the new year off with our 30th episode.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
Yeah.
All right, speaking of pretty cool, let's talk about that really cool game show, Deal or No Deal.
All right, well, so here's the deal. The gameplay,
Here's the deal.
Oh, my God. I didn't even mean to do that.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Okay.
All right. Well, so there's not a lot of gameplay here, and to be perfectly honest, not to be perfectly honest, but to be fair, I don't think it presents itself in a way that indicates that there is more gameplay than there is, right? Like, I think that's self-aware that it's not much of a show and that it's relying purely on suspense more than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, really. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, so there's a single contestant, just one person, and they are presented with 26 individual cases at the start of the game. They will each be brought out by their own gorgeous model who walks out and shows all 26 cases in this grand reveal with the dramatic music and all that. There have been a few famous models over the years, notably Meghan Markle, as Christian said in the news segment.
Right.
Basically, just of these 26 cases and the 26 models that present them, the contestant chooses one single case. Each case is going to contain a cash value anywhere between 1 cent and $1 million. Sometimes there's more in special episodes. I say anywhere between. That's not necessarily true. There's not going to be like $432. It's all, even amounts, obviously. But in, 1 cent, $1, $10, $50, upwards all the way to $1 million that way.
Sure.
So again, the contestant chooses one single case. They set that one aside, and it is not open. The contestant does not know what is in their case, and that's the key to making this game work. After they choose their case, they go into the first round, wherein they choose 5 more cases, and those will be eliminated one at a time from the pool. So you'll choose, let's say what's in case 23, right? The model opens it up and reveals the value inside, therefore marking it off the board. The idea here being you want to open the low values in this round, knocking them off the board, and therefore increasing the likelihood that your case has potentially the top value, but at least a high amount, right?
Right.
Because even if you win $10,000, that's still a lot of money. It's not the top prize, but still pretty good, right?
Sure.
After those 5 cases are eliminated, the banker, quote unquote, who is really supposedly the mastermind of the show, they will call down to the stage. A little phone is on the podium that the contestant is playing at, and the host, Howie Mandel, will answer and speak to the banker. This is the titular Deal or No Deal. The banker will say, "Hey, contestant, I am going to give you X amount of dollars to stop playing. I don't want you to take that case. I don't want you to open up any more cases. I want you to take the money that I'm going to offer and just stop playing the game." Obviously, the sort of storyline here is that it's the banker's money. They want the contestant to win as little as possible, and therefore will be making an offer that they think is fair enough to get the person to stop playing, but will be lower than what is in the case that they have chosen.
So basically, what the banker's doing is hedging the bet of the production's money to try to get the person to walk away with the smallest amount of potential prize money.
Correct. And so that's kind of the thing, is the banker is really just an actor. They're not calling any shots. The producers are. But they are like legitimate deals, and they are based on, as I understood it, and I'm really bad at math, so, I don't want to try and dig in this too much, but basically my understanding is that it is a percentage of the amount of money in all remaining cases.
Right. Yeah. So what would happen is, okay, so let's break it down to like 5 cases, and they are 2, 4, 6, 8. 2, 4, 6, 8, and $10. Okay, so if you pick one case away, and let's say you chose that, and that's going to be your case, and it's $8, that leaves 2, 4, 6, and 10.
Correct.
And you choose your next case, and it's 6. So 6 goes away. So you're left with 2, 4, and 10. So that total amount of money that's left right now is $16.
Right.
They could lose upwards of $10 And they now know that you could have 10 in there. So what they'll do is they'll take a 16 and they'll say, all right, let's make a deal of, $5 because we don't want to give away 10.
Right.
And 8's already gone. So if I do $5, I'm hedging my bet that now the contestant's not going to have the 10 in the case. They're only going to take the 5. And you're also assuming that you're hoping that you don't have the $2 case. And you're like, wow, I'll take the $5 case. So that's all it comes down to. I'm sure it's a program that they've built where literally it's a spreadsheet, and as they're open, they type in the amount that they've got, and based on what all the money is, the percentage comes out, and literally they know already to program it in.
100%. I think that is an accurate representation. Now, here's the only wrinkle in that, though, that I found interesting. Apparently, there have been situations where the deal offered was more than 100% of the remaining cases. So in your example, the remaining cases were 16. So theoretically, the offer could have been $20. And
really?
And I think the idea there is just to throw a curveball every once in a while to say it might behoove you to take a deal. And probably the reasoning for that is because nobody ever took the deal, and there was no $1 million winner for a couple seasons. So I think they did that later on, maybe to make it a little more enticing to take a deal and a little more dramatic as opposed to what your options are, right? We're going on the idea that it is always a lower percentage than everything added up. Then there's never a real reason. I mean, that's not really true, but you wouldn't necessarily want to take the deal because it's but there's more out there, right? The deal is never going to be the best option. And now with this wrinkle that theoretically the deal could be the best option, that's now another, I don't want to say strategy because there's no strategy here, but that's just another thing to consider when choosing how to proceed with the game.
Right, but here's the deal too. Okay, if the $1 million case and the 1 penny case are the only two left, and the deal comes down, and the dealer says, "I'll give you $5,000." You may take the $5,000 because you have a 50-50 chance. You have a 100% chance of the $5,000 and a 50-50 chance of getting the $1 million.
Right, exactly.
So that's the tough part. And I think the only time that they got millionaires, and I don't know this for absolute sure because I didn't read enough about it, was when they had that drive for the million or whatever it was, where they were literally I think they added $1 million case to every episode that didn't get $1 million. So there was eventually $1 million cases in the thing before the
That is correct. Yeah.
Anyway, they also at some point, which I think was cool, they offered prizes as opposed to money as the offers.
Yes, I did see that as well. So yeah, you can say
that's
I'll give you a
cool.
couch if you get out of here. But it wasn't just a couch; it was tailored to the contestants' interest. The one I read about was the guy was a big basketball fan, so they offered up a signed basketball and courtside season tickets or something like that. Which, if I were a contestant on that show as a collector of Dungeon Synth cassette tapes, it's going to be pretty hard for them to find a deal on that.
In all honesty, you're better off taking the cash anyway because you have to, you got to pay taxes on all that stuff.
Right. Well, so then that's the question is, if you get the cent, what is the tax on that?
No idea. Here's 2 shillings. Have a nice day.
Right. So yeah, basically once they get the offer, they can either press this big red button and say, I will take that money. They will forfeit their case. They'll not play the game anymore, and they'll just take home whatever money the person or the banker has offered them. Or they can decline it. There's a little door on the button that they can shut, and then they continue playing. If they choose to continue playing, they just continue rounds like they just did, but each time the amount of cases that you pick diminishes. So in other words, first round you open 5 cases, next round you open 4, then 3, so on and so forth.
Sure.
So this is going to continue until either the contestant bows out and takes the deal, or there's 2 cases left. Once there's 2 cases left, the banker will make one final deal, and they can, again, choose to accept or decline. If they turn it down, they are now presented with the option of switching their case for the last case remaining. Now this, when I was reading about it, this initially brought to mind the Monty Hall problem that we mentioned.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
I don't think it's the same thing, though.
Yeah.
Because in the Monty Hall problem, the prizes are absolute. whereas in this one they are relative, right? The donkey is relative to whatever is in your case, meaning you could have $10,000 and that's not a donkey, but then if you open up the $1 million case, it's like, oh, well, now all of a sudden you do kind of have the donkey, right?
Right.
So I don't think you can use the same logic in choosing whether or not to switch. And it hurts my brain to try and figure out if there is logic in switching on this one, since there's so many variables. Sure. Personally, I would just stick with the one that I picked, because, like, that's the one I picked. I'm sticking with that one. That's my boy, you know?
It's gut feeling.
Yep.
Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely. Go with
and then once they make their final decision of which case they want, it is opened, and they win that much money, and the game is over. That is it.
Do they open the case if you decide to take the offer from the banker to see what they would have won?
I believe they do, yeah.
All right, well, that's it. Gameplay.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Well, I will say, as little gameplay as there is, we did talk an awful lot about how it works, but I think that's more just like mathematics and statistics and chance.
Yeah, and the truth is, it has a real appeal, and we'll talk more about that in the history, but this show has been all over the place and really been on for a long time.
Yeah, and it did very, very well. I mean, you know, the numbers speak for themselves.
Sure.
You know, but I just don't see it.
Well, we'll talk more about it next. All right, we got the history coming up. You've been listening to America's favorite game show podcast. Tell them what they've won. We're back. Episode number 27, segment number 3, the featured show this week, Deal or No Deal. Mike Jacobs, do you have some history for us on this?
I do. I have a bit of history. So initially, and I find this kind of interesting, this was initially started as a Dutch game show. It was called Hunt for Millions.
Hunt for Millions?
Yeah, however you say the words Hunt for Millions in Dutch. I have the
something it's furniture at IKEA pronunciation.
It's one single word, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce it because I'll just butcher it. But if any Dutch listeners want to write in and tell us how Hunt for Millions is said in that language.
Phonetically, please.
Phonetically, yes, that's what I mean. Yeah. Yeah, so I just find that interesting because typically the shows that we've talked about are either American or British in origin.
British, yeah.
So, yeah, I just think the Dutch is a nice change in pace of origin story for this one. But it was adapted for American television by Scott St. John and Howie Mandel. Howie Mandel has an executive producer credit. I don't really know how much he was involved in the show beyond maybe just providing money or, who knows. But
right.
They are both credited as the developers and executive producers of the show. Well, at least the American version, which premiered on December 19th, 2005 on NBC, and of course Howie Mandel was the host. And if I'm being perfectly honest, Howie Mandel is the only appeal of this show to me. I don't even think he's that great on it or as a host or anything. I just like him a lot. I was a big fan of Bobby's World. I think his stand-up's pretty good. I don't know if you remember the movie with him and Fred Savage, Little Monsters, of no relation to the current Little Monsters, but
yeah, no, I don't remember that. I do remember him as a comedian in the 80s, 90s, and I really enjoyed him.
There's just like a cute wholesomeness to him that I really like.
But I don't like him as much now with the bald head and the I don't shake hands and it's creepy. He's kind of gotten creepy.
I mean, I guess there's maybe a certain amount of what you could say is a disorder in there, an OCD or something like that. I don't want to fault him for, things that may be out of his control.
Yeah, by the way, that's not why. I'm just saying he's a little creepy. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying people who have OCD are creepy. That's not what I'm saying.
Okay, fair. I will say, from a physical presentation point of view, I am not a fan of the bald head and goatee look. Like, if you want to look like a 1930s serials villain, then sure. But,
And that comes from a guy who's got a bald head and a full beard.
That is accurate, and I look ridiculous.
I don't think so. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so its first week, it did very, very well. It landed in the top 15 slot of ratings overall, which, top 15 doesn't sound that great, I guess, but if you think 15 television shows out of everything that's out there, that's pretty darn good and is very promising for a brand new show.
Absolutely.
And yeah, it was kind of moving along. By March of 2006, it was airing twice weekly on Mondays and Fridays, but it was doing so well that they decided to add a third on Wednesday as well. And as a matter of fact, it did so well that this blew my mind. That year, 2006, it outperformed the NCAA basketball finals in ratings. They did make it a special 2-hour episode, so it was kind of like a big deal that was hyped up specifically to compete against that. But and as a sports guy, I don't care about the NBA finals, or I'm sorry, NCAA finals. But I do know what a big deal that is and what a huge pull it brings in. So for a game show to beat that out is like, wow, well done on them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it just kind of continued on like this. Really, the big change that they made at one point, they in the second season, they changed that Wednesday episode to Thursday. In 2008, they started a syndicated version, also hosted by Howie Mandel. I think Christian touched on this, that he didn't really want to at first, or at least that they were considering other people. He definitely did not want to. I think Christian mentioned that Arsenio Hall was in contention. Not contention.
Right.
But also so was Mark Curry. I don't know if you remember him, but he was best known for his role on Hanging with Mr. Cooper back in the day.
Yes, I do remember. That's right.
Yeah, yep. They were both in consideration, but did not get picked. Eventually, Howie did come in and do the syndicated version, which also did very well. It wasn't like breaking records. It wasn't shattering expectations. It was just doing very well, right? It kind of just continued along like this, not increasing, not decreasing, just maintaining the status quo. But then Dancing with the Stars, I think in their fourth season, they started doing an episode on Monday, and that was not great. Competing against Dancing with the Stars is tough, I guess. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't see the appeal of that one either. So for me, it's kind of a toss-up of which one I'm going to watch.
I can't wait till we do that episode. That's going to be fun.
We will not be doing that show.
Why not? It's a game show.
I guess I just don't care.
It's a game show.
It's not. I'm not arguing against that.
Look, we have to do all the shows at some point.
Okay. Well, yeah. All right. Fine. When it's 2033 and we've run out of game shows.
Hey, Top Chef is coming, man. Be ready.
I feel like I've made that exact same joke before. Anyways. They keep, changing times here and there, slight adjustments to the rules, but nothing's really changing, which I think ultimately was the problem. After 4 seasons, they decided to end it. The syndicated version continued for another season after that, but I think it was just that after 4 seasons, that initial huge interest had sort of just plateaued and it just ran out of steam, right?
I kind of feel like because there isn't all that much strategy to this and there's not a lot of gameplay, there's not a play along capability. Even though there's been plenty of video game shows of this made, I just don't. You're not okay. I'm going to pick 23, and then you just wait and see what 23 ends up being.
Right. Exactly. Well, and the thing is, so you could write a computer program that would play this game for you. Like, there's no need for human interaction. It's just math and statistics. The only human interaction is greed.
Correct.
Which I guess is, that's why the show ended, I think, is people after a while just got sick of watching people make poor decisions in the name of greed, right?
Right.
One quick point that is not in our notes that I was just reminded because you talked about the video games. So when the show initially started, the identity of the banker was like a big secret, right?
I remember that. Yeah.
He was silhouetted. Nobody knew who he was. And Christian brought this up that when he was in the audience, he like ran off with his face covered. And obviously, it was like had they known who it was, it wouldn't have mattered because it was just some actor, anyways, right? Mm-hmm. The funny thing is, in the video game version, I believe for the original PlayStation, he provides the voice of the banker and is credited in the video game by name. So while it was supposed to be this whole big secret, if anybody ever put those two things together, they would have figured out who it was while it was supposed to be a big secret.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, those are the early days of the IMDb, and and nobody's really Googling that like crazy. I don't think. I mean, although this has an appeal, I think there was kind of also the idea that it was fun to have a silhouetted character.
Right. Well, and that's the thing to me is like the silhouetted character is fun, and it doesn't matter who plays it, and it's not like at the end of the day it's gonna be like, oh my god, it's Tom Hanks. It's going to be like, no, it's Steven Yablonsky, some random actor from Nowheresville, Michigan or something,
And I want to say I even saw this episode, but there was one episode where like somebody swore that it was Larry King. And so the banker actually sent Larry King in with the offer, like the second offer, to prove that it wasn't Larry King who was the banker.
Well, but now is this an Andy Kaufman sort of thing where someone else is playing Larry King?
I don't know. I just don't know.
No, it's not. It's not. We're giving this show way too much credit.
Yeah, we are.
But I will say when they brought in the second banker, the female banker, her identity was not really... I mean, obviously, it was still a silhouetted character, and in the scope of the show, you didn't know who the banker was. But there was much less effort on, like, keeping her identity a secret. So anyways, 4 seasons it ran, ended in the syndicated version for 5, ending in 2010. And then in 2018, it comes back for a 5th season on CNBC. That's right, CNBC.
Wow. Where game shows go to die.
I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense. Like, A, it's an NBC sister network, so, they probably already had the rights. B, it's like a financial themed channel, so I guess it kind of fits with that. And they also used to run reruns of Deal or No Deal before that happened. So it wasn't like it was out of the blue, but I mean, CNBC, like, you might as well just put it on C-SPAN. Who is watching that?
Can we say because people make poor financial decisions who watch CNBC, so maybe that's why you put the game on there as well?
My apologies to anyone who works at or is a fan of CNBC.
There goes our NBC affiliation.
Right?
Okay.
So of course GSN doing reruns periodically. They've been doing that since the start of the show, really, off and on here and there. And now it even has its own channel on Pluto. So, I mean, that has got to be a boring channel.
How do you really feel, Mike?
Sorry. Again, apologies to the fine folks at Pluto and their quality programming. I'm dogging this more than I need to.
And in all fairness, you talk really good about Pluto on a regular basis.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun. It's the best free TV you're going to get. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh yeah, I think it's fantastic. I will say this, that I do kind of sort of see where an appeal could be on this game, kind of, because there is the whole idea of, wow, the lights, the big lights, the bright lights, the beautiful women, the big money, so I see that kind of appeal to some folks out there. Personally, none of it really appeals to me. I think in total, back in the day, I've seen maybe 3 episodes of this, and it's because it just happened to be on.
Right, I agree. Well, and I think 3 episodes here and there, it's fine, right? Like, there is suspense there, and I did find when I was watching it, I found myself, like, trying to figure out what the banker was going to offer, and like, should I take it? What's the lowest amount I would take? That sort of thing. So like,
sure.
I think for the contestant, maybe it is a little more interesting than it is for the watcher. But like you said earlier, there's no play at home ability. And I just overall, I don't get the appeal of watching it more than just like, oh, here's an episode of Deal or No Deal. Remember this? Let's watch it for a second.
All right. Well, that being said, we should probably rate it. What do you think? Suitcases?
Yeah. Let's give it a rating out of cases.
All right, Mike, I'll let you go first.
Okay, so I want to preface this by saying that I have said in the past, and Christian has contested this, and we'll see what he can do. I don't think there are any zeros. And I think this show is the evidence that there are no zeros, because this is basically, in my opinion, as close to a zero as you can get. The gameplay is essentially just a random number generator and that's it. Like, right? Did you win? Did you lose? Or how much money did you win? And to me, suspense is not gameplay. I don't care. It's not, I don't know, just nothing about this show interests me in any regard. I'm not giving it a 0 because I like Howie Mandel. Obviously there was a certain amount of appeal to it because it lasted for 4 seasons and came back for a 5th and has its own channel on Pluto.
Right.
Gosh, like a 0.5, a 1, I'll give it 1 case. 0.5 sounds like mean.
Right.
1 sounds like I don't like it. And so I'm going 1. I think, Howie Mandel is fun. He does a good job on the show. Good enough job for what the show is, even though it's not really like my liking of Howie Mandel and my appreciation of his job as host on the show are completely unrelated.
Well, that was a really long way to go for a really bad rating.
Yep. Well, I want to justify it because I do feel bad that I'm like really dogging on this show.
Yeah.
But I want it to be known that it's like I don't want to tell anybody how to feel about the show. I want it to be known that I am justifying my reasoning for not liking it, not just being like, "Yeah, this show's garbage. You suck for not liking it."
And agreed that we here are not telling you whether to watch it or not. Like, you have your own rating on this, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But for us, it's not that big. I'm giving it a 1.25, and the reason is because 2.5 would be 50%. It'd be half. So I really feel this is like a quarter. And I will give it the idea that they do dramatize it up well. It's produced extremely well. It's very showy, it's glitzy, it's glamoury, so it has that redeeming qualities. I'm not crazy about Howie Mandel, but he does a good job. So it's like he's perfect for this, He's got a little comedy, he's got a little fun, he's got a little seriousness. I've even seen him in one episode storm up into the office and give words to the banker because he didn't like the offer. So to me, it's got a little bit of likability in that regard. I personally am not a fan, but that doesn't mean that it's a crappy game show. I'm just saying that my personal rating is 1.25 suitcases.
That's fair. And what your explanation there just kind of made me think of something, is that a lot of this show is interaction with the contestant. Like, a lot of times the contestant is sort of telling their story and why they need the money and yada, yada, yada. And in that respect, it kind of reminds me of You Bet Your Life.
You Bet Your Life.
And
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, Howie Mandel sort of has that same role where he has to not only play game show host, but he kind of got to play talk show host a little bit. And I think that sort of, it ups my opinion of him, not of the show overall. I'm still sticking with a solid 1.
Sure. Okay. All right, Mike. Well, that's all the time we've got for today.
Yes, indeed it is. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Christian. Thank you, everyone at Buzzerblog. Thank you, everyone who listens. And please, as we said before, send us more Stump the Chumps. Give us hard ones. We want to make Christian get something wrong.
Finally, that would be really, really great for him to get something wrong. All right, tune in again next time. We'll bring you the latest and greatest in the world of game shows, as well as a brand new featured show, too.
Remember, you can always catch us online on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and, of course, tellthemwhatthey'vewon.com.
Please subscribe, share, like, and drop a review if you like what you heard.
And if you didn't like it, no deal.
See you next week, Mike.
Bye, Tom.
You've been listening to America's favorite game show podcast, Tell Them What They've Won, a JTech audio production, copyright 2020. No part of this podcast may be reproduced by anyone without the express written consent of the creators. For more information or to contact us, please go to tellthemwhatthey'vewon.com.
All right, Tom, what'd you learn this week?
I learned that even after going down this rabbit hole with this show, I'm still not sure what the real appeal was at the time. Maybe we just wanted to see people open cases, beautiful women open cases and people win lots of money. But, man, this got some incredible ratings for being a really run-of-the-mill game show.
I agree. It's all surface-level glitz and glamour. I don't think there's anything there, and I don't see the appeal.
Well, how about we do a new show next week?
Deal.
Copyright 2020, a JTech audio production.